joining us for March's Books in Focus, where we're going to talk about all of the exciting titles, well, some of the ones that we picked out that we wanted to highlight coming out in April. We like to start out with some name recognizable bestsellers. We don't go in depth on these, but these are little reminders in case you're a fan of these authors that they have new ones coming out in April. Simply Lies is a twisty new thriller focusing on two female main characters. One is a former detective and one a dangerous con artist. There's of course an exciting game of cat and mouse. Where Are the Children Now is about Afara Burke, and it is a sequel to Mary Higgins Clark's 1975, one of her best sellers about Where Are the Children. Main character Nancy from the original, now her children have grown up and we're going to see them in their adult lives and their adult struggles in this sequel from many years ago. John Sanford's newest is the second in the Letty Davenport series. Letty's going to take on a group of hackers known as Ordinary People, and she's going to uncover some not so friendly allies with ulterior motives. Happy Place is the newest from Emily Henry. She's the bestseller of many on our shelves that seem to be circulating well. Beach reads, people we meet on vacation, book lovers. Emily Henry's really popular on social media right now, and her newest is about a broken up couple pretending to still be together for their annual friends vacation trip together. Homecoming from Kate Morton, and Kate Morton you'll recognize as the author of The Lake House and The Clockmaker's Daughter, brings us a new mystery. Small town shocking murder happens in South Australia in 1959. Flash forward to now, where a journalist uncovers her family might have ties to solving this cold case. City of Dreams by Dawn Winslow is a sequel in the Danny Ryan series. It's an epic crime trilogy, so there will be a third one coming out next year. Takes place in Hollywood. Danny, our main character, is now on the run, and the mafia and the FBI want him dead. Small Mercies is an all-consuming tale of revenge, family love, festering hate, and insidious power, it promises, set in 1970s Boston. And last but not least, My Heart Will Find You. Emmett Willmouth gets lost in library books during the early days of our global pandemic. Romance and time travel will ensue. Some new nonfiction for you to look forward to.
Trying to be prepared. All right, hello. So these are new short-to-be best-selling nonfiction titles. The first is The Wager, and it is the true story of a shipwreck that had mysterious circumstances. On January 28, 1742, a ramshackle vessel with 30 emaciated men washed up ashore off the coast of Brazil. So this is a narrative nonfiction about what these men went through, and it is by the best-selling author of The Killers of the Flower Moon. Man, I got all of the words out in the right order for once. Next title we have is You Could Make This Place Beautiful by poet Maggie Smith, not to be confused with Dame Maggie Smith, who explores the disintegration of her marriage and her renewed commitment to herself in lyrical vignettes that shine as hard and clear jewels in her new memoir. The next we have is A Fever in the Heartland. It is described as a historical thriller by Pulitzer and National Book Award winning author Timothy Egan that tells the riveting story of the Klan's rise to power in the 1920s, the cunning con man who drove that rise, and the woman who stopped him. Next we have Honey Baby Mine, there we go, by Laura Dern and Diana Laud. This is a collection of deeply personal conversations and anecdotes between the award-winning actress and activist Laura Dern and her legendary actress mother, Diana Laud. It is meant to be very tender and personal as they struggle through several different topics from marriage all the way down to childhood. The next one we have is What We Know by Simon Winchester. It's described as a brilliant and all-encompassing look at how humans acquire, retain, and pass on information and data, and how technology continues to change our minds they celebrated the fact that all of human knowledge had officially doubled. That was more than a decade ago. Imagine where we are now with that information. The next one we have is My Life in 5 Senses by Gretchen Rubin. She is the best-selling author of The Happiness Project, and here she explores the mysteries and joys of the 5 senses and uses her experiences and research to discover a path to a happier, more mindfully drawn lifestyle. And she explores these things not only with cutting-edge science, but also philosophy and literature. Next, there will be Fire by Rory Carroll. This is the gripping true story of how the IRA came astonishingly close to killing Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher on October 12, 1984, at the Grand Hotel bombing. He draws from meticulous new research, interviews, and it's described very strongly as a historical thriller. And then finally, we have The Wisdom of the Bullfrog by Admiral William McRaven. So I had to look this up because I didn't quite understand the reference, but apparently the title Bullfrog is given to Navy SEALs who have served the longest on active duty, and it's considered one of the highest honors in the Navy SEALs. Admiral McRaven was honored with this title in 2011, and in this book he provides wisdom to aspiring leaders as well as advice, and he primarily explains that good leadership is simple. That doesn't mean it's easy though, but it is simple. So those are our new nonfiction titles, bestsellers. And then the first one, sorry, you're still stuck with me. All right, so our first title is Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. Tress enjoys a simple life on her island home with her father and friend Charlie. It's all she has ever known. Tress's father and Charlie set off on a voyage across the sea when disaster strikes, and it's up to her to discover what happened and to seek out the sorceress of the deadly midnight sea in this fun, lighthearted adventure fantasy, inconceivably reminiscent of The Princess Bride. So, pretty conceivably, I brought The Princess Bride as my first read-alike. It is, of course, as everyone knows, the perfect story. It's got action, it's got romance, it's got adventure, it's got all the fun stuff, and lots of witty dialogue and humor. The next read-alike I have is The Sheep Farmer's Daughter by Elizabeth Moon, because it has a similar sense of adventure and a strong female protagonist exploring new possibilities for her life. This one, our protagonist is Pax, and although she may be the humble daughter of a sheep farmer, she dreams of adventure. So when a band of mercenaries passes through her area, she goes back and forth, but ultimately makes the choice to leave everything she's ever known to join them and to become a hero. And then I need mine also. The next one. Sorry, you're all still stuck with me. This one. All right. So this is Symphony of Secrets by Brendan Slocum. In this follow-up novel, a music professor named Bern Hendricks may have just discovered a shocking secret about one of the most famous American composers of all time. Determined to uncover the truth, Bern quickly realizes there's a powerful organization seeking to silence him. Described as a gripping musical thriller full of twists and turns, it jumps between Bern's investigation in current times and 1920s New York, and it strikes the perfect chord. Sorry, couldn't help it. So my first read-alike, for anyone who maybe missed our book discussion about it, is The Violin Conspiracy. This was his first novel. It also is a musical thriller that looks deeply into the world of classical music, and some of the unfortunate racism that can occur in that area. And then the next one is The Historian by Elizabeth Kostova. We're gonna go with it. It has a similar sense of historical menace and an immersive detail. It is the dual story of a young man trying to uncover the truth of historical stories of Vlad the Impaler and fantastical tale of Dracula, and a daughter on a mission to discover what has happened to her father.
Our next selection is Red Team Blues by Cory Doctorow. This is a thriller set in current day Silicon Valley. Our protagonist is Martin Hench, who is a self-employed forensic accountant. Doesn't sound very exciting, does it? Oh, but wait. He's 67. He's been in Silicon Valley for years, or since it began. And he is a world-level expert on the ins and outs of spreadsheets, high-end databases, hiding and finding money, and concealing and revealing chicanery. His new job will take every ounce of his skill to survive. And as an aside, he lives in a revamped bus that he got from, he won it, I think, in a bet with a rock and roll star in the 70s. I didn't really write that down, but it's in my mind. Also, I was very shocked that Miranda didn't snag this one, because in the very first sentence under the title in the review, it tells us that it's cryptocurrency shenanigans. So, and I mean, how timely, right? It's so much in the news right now. Rita likes, I brought along, Cory Doctorow has many books in many areas of the library. This is a science fiction selection, Down and Out in the Magic Kingdom. And usually when I'm looking at science fiction, I look for smaller books. This fit my bill. And then Andrew Grant has also written a related book. This is a fiction that is run, and it has a similar premise. And turning back is hopeless, and giving up is madness. He is being chased by everyone. They all think he has the Holy Grail on a thumb drive. Of course. A lot of practice. Carry babies around a lot. Okay, next is The Housemate. This comes to us from Sarah Bailey, who is probably most widely known for her Gemma Woodstock trilogy. This is one of the selections from that. This takes place in current times. It's a thriller, and we are in Australia for this one. After having worked on a mysterious murder as a junior reporter, Olive Groves resumes her investigation 9 years later. Originally, there were 3 housemates. One of them ended up dead, one ended up missing, and one ended up being accused of murder. The missing housemate is found murdered 9 years later, and secrets and revelations catapult Olive to back to the original murder. Her traumas relived, she worries that her relentless search for answers may cost her her happiness and even her sanity. It's about a 300-page book. It's not terribly long, and it comes out on the 11th of April. The other read-alike I chose was Earthly Delights by Greenwood. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Carrie Greenwood's mysteries. Hers is a mystery that also involves a similar premise, and her mysteries are always very concise, well written, concise, something that I like to grab when I'm in between things.
Next one, Untethered Sky. Not Lee's first book. She's actually won awards for her previous series. It was called the Green Bone Saga. In this one, main character Esther's family is torn apart after her mother is murdered. Her father becomes reclusive, really turns it on himself, kind of completely forgets about Esther. He becomes hell-bent on revenge. Esther then joins the King's Royal Muse, which is usually made up of rocks and rockers, which I'm gonna go on a limb here and say that these are fantasy creatures in this invented world. We'll have to learn more about these hunters and warriors. The group, the Royal Muse, is renowned hunters, and they all together go on an unexpected journey. And Esther is her own. She's not like the other people in her community, so we're really gonna see her struggle for that self-identity, and I'm guessing that we're gonna hear more about her impact, and maybe she's helping with find her mother's murderer as well. Sounds intriguing. The newest one, oh, I forgot to mention here. I'm so sorry. I know we're all super excited for Untethered Sky, but I brought some read-alikes. They're both from the science fiction section. The Art of Prophecy sounded really interesting. It's an unexpected group that gets assembled, and they go on a mission together, and they think that the wrong hero has been picked. And so they are working together while ultimately trying to undermine their leader, which I thought was a really interesting take on the, let's get a group together and go on a journey story. This one off the news shelf, two women find their identities and struggle with their own identities in this world that I'm guessing is dominated by men and or other creatures, and they are exploring a forbidden elemental magic. The Daughters of Izar. Next up, Irene Hammond. Now, she's also published before. This is the 9th in the Hope Harbor series that comes out this month. This is her previous one, Seaglass Cottage. When I was reviewing them, it does sound like they can stand alone, that you can jump in on number 9 or you can go back and read number 2. They've got enough unique things going on, unique characters, that you won't be interrupting the entire series. But this one, Windswept Way, main character Ashley Scott buys her dream home and starts a new life. She starts afresh and things aren't quite going as planned. Local Jonathan Gray is surprised and cautious of the attractive new woman moving in, but he's more focused on himself and his business and his house and all the things he has to get done. And when he goes to hire a new position in his business, guess who shows up on his doorstep to interview? It's gonna be Ashley Scott, our main character. And of course, some romance and some getting to know you is gonna happen along the way. So if you're not catching up on this series, the Hope Harbor series, here's another sweet read-alike. The Sweet Life is about a woman's impulsive Cape Cod purchase where she's looking to start her life anew and to start a new business that leads to unexpected new connections.
The Golden Doves is written by Martha Hall Kelly. This is a post-World War II story. Takes place in Ravensbrück, concentration camp for women in Germany and throughout Europe. We have two protagonists, Josie Anderson is an American, and her friend Arlette LaRue is a lady from France. They're both female spies who are so good they find themselves hunted by the Gestapo, arrested, and are held at Ravensbrück with their families. 10 years later, Josie accepts an assignment from U.S. Army Intelligence to hunt down the Nazi doctor who did horrible things to her mother while at Ravensbrück. A mystery man at the same time is telling Arlette that he may have found the son that she was separated from at Ravensbrück and thought she would never see again. Their quest across Europe into French Guiana to secure justice and protect the ones that they love. They are risking a lot when they're on these adventures. For read-alikes, there are a million. I'm sure 7 or 10 came into your head right away. But I chose the Lilac Girls. This is Martha Kelly's first. This is her debut novel. If you're not familiar with it, it is a very intriguing story. It also takes place partly at Ravensbrück, and it's number 1 in a trilogy. We do have the other 2 as well. The Invisible Woman by Erica Roebuck is a woman from Baltimore becomes a spy in Europe, and she tries to avenge the time that she loses. The time she lost. First case didn't go well, and she's obsessed with trying to make up for that. Well, you know, this leaves me today thanking God that I have good coworkers who are interested in a variety of things and are willing to help me when I send out an SOS. This is A Mother of the Bride Murder by Leslie Meyer that's coming out on the 25th. It's a cozy mystery, and we are going to read more about Lucy Stone. She's a recurring character. There are several in the series, but it doesn't sound, once again, like it's mandatory to be read in order. In Mother of the Bride Murder, Lucy travels from her home in Maine to France for her daughter's marriage to the man of her dreams. She gets a feeling that the dream may become a nightmare. A body is pulled from the moat. A young woman drops dead under mysterious circumstances. Unflattering rumors about the groom's family flow like champagne. Tension, clashes, and real danger drive Lucy to locate the culprit before her daughter's wedding is ruined. And as an aside, the daughter's hunky ex-fiance might be showing up. And then for read-alikes, I brought another one by Leslie Meyer. This is an Easter Bunny murder. And there's also the Easter bonnet murder. That's why I chose it. She's got so many. I thought, how am I going to narrow it down? Easter's coming. So I chose that one, and it is it's from 2013, but it's typical of a Lucy Stone mystery. And then I also chose The Wedding Plot by Munier. Paula. And this is a protagonist, the protagonist's grandmother is marrying the man of her dreams. And they find at the venue, which they've all traveled to, there is a stranger skewered by a pitchfork. And that just sets the investigation in motion. So Lucy, that is cozy, right? How much they talk about how scripted it is.
in April is the newest from J. Ryan Straddle. What I really appreciate about this author is he seems to write what he knows, which I like. I don't like when authors overreach and you go, why did they invent that character? They don't know. It didn't seem genuine. This author's something different. He's from Minnesota. He writes in Minnesota. So you hopefully might recognize the name from last year's book discussion pick, maybe even the previous years. Where's the time go? The Logger Queen of Minnesota. Hopefully we've all read that one. If not, there's plenty of copies laying around here. This is his first, so if you read and liked that one, maybe go back and read his first while you're waiting for this one to come out. The Kitchens of the Great Midwest is great. It's a story of a family that breaks apart and the father that raises the daughter, and they bond over food, and they live in Minnesota, and it's very endearing. In the latest one, Saturday Night at the Lake Supper Club, main character Muriel is overdue for a break. Her beloved family restaurant is bleeding money. Her husband's no help. He's having a midlife crisis. Her mother's being difficult. She's holed up and refusing to leave the house. Muriel's kind of by herself. The Lakeside Supper Club has been in the family for decades, but caused a family rift when Muriel's grandmother handed it down to Muriel instead of her mother. The mother had not expressed a lot of interest in the restaurant, hadn't really worked in the restaurant, but was still upset when she wasn't offered it first. So there is some family drama going on as Muriel's trying to make everything work. We will read this endearing, heartwarming family story and figure out if Muriel, her husband Ned, and her mother can come together and save the family business. Another read-alike would be Jenny Cooligan's The Cafe by the Sea. Quaint Scottish island, family cafe, a little bit more of a romance in this one than a family story, but also gives you that same feel-good location, small-town character appeal. The next one by Sandra Dallas takes place in Wyoming. This one's a bit more of a historical fiction though. As you can tell from the cover, we're gonna get that immersive story, lots of setting, lots of description, really rich atmosphere, really a love story to Wyoming in this one. It's a historical fiction, as I mentioned. It takes place in 1916 in Wallace, Wyoming. Main character Ellen Webster. She takes a teaching position in Wallace, and that's how she ends up there as a single woman. She happily meets a handsome cowboy, Charlie Bacon, and life is not easy, but they do come together as a couple, and they strive to survive in the Wild West in the early turn of the century, despite personal successes and tragedies. We get to know them, their community, a fresh, sweet historical fiction about the Wild West. Diana Palmer writes more of a modern setting, but she also writes romances with big heart and great settings. She has a whole series dedicated to Wyoming as well. There's like 6 of these on the shelf. They're great reads if you like Wild West stories. Sandra Dallas's first was Little Souls. Now this takes place in Colorado in 1919, I don't want to misspeak, 18. This one focuses on sisters trying to survive in Colorado back in almost the same period. So a similar time period. So this one might be one to read while you're waiting for Where Cowboys Howl.
Maybe the cowboys got some howling to do too.
Yeah, the Coyote bit the cowboy and hits the howling. And what just popped in my head was Wile E. Coyotes, but genius.
I'm going to share another mystery. This is The Seaside Library by Brenda Novak. It takes place in current times with some look back at a place called Mariner's Island. Our protagonist is Ariana. 20 years after a young girl went missing on an idyllic island, Ariana returns to Mariner's Island just as new evidence is emerging on the case. Over one eventful summer, Ariana and her friends Cam and Ivy will finally learn the truth. They were friends 20 years ago and they're getting back together A read-alike for that is, one of Brenda Novak's previous, Summer on the Island. There's 3 friends on an island, and earth-shattering secrets are revealed. The Girl Next Door is one of the best by Ruth Rendell. There is a murder, and we meet the witnesses and the people that were around 6 decades after the murder. And this looks into, as if memory isn't slippery enough, this one looks into the memory of people with 60 years of life between the event and the questioning.
They have memories at all.
Well, I don't know, we'd have to, I'm not gonna spoil it. I don't think I remember anything 60 years ago. Except riding the pony at the Kroger store. And my sunglasses, I had really cool sunglasses when I was 3. Okay, more of Christine's specialty here. I'm indebted to Danny Tanner. Oh, no, none. Yours Truly is a romance by Abby Jimenez. It is takes place in current times, of course. Our protagonist is Dr. Brianna Ortiz. Dr. Ortiz is newly divorced. She's seeking a promotion and anxiously awaiting for her brother to find a kidney donor match. Enter Dr. Jacob Maddox, who is on her pain in the ass scale at 87. And he'll likely get the promotion she's after. And he writes her a letter. And she realizes he is funny, maybe a likable guy who might make terrible first impressions. They exchange letters, they go on lunch dates, and discuss tiny horses. And Jacob also donates a kidney to her brother. And we all live happily ever after.
Spoilers.
Got a nice ending, right? I don't think it was, what was it, a spoiler, was it? Spoiler going in. I grabbed another one of hers, Happily Ever After playlist. That's, I don't know, happy music, I guess. And then Faker, which is by Sarah Smith. And this is under Tate's chiseled exterior, Abby realizes there really is a soft heart. So they start out, also in conflict, but somehow figure out how to come together.
So, this is The Bird Has Flown by Susanna Hoffs. Our protagonist is Jane Start, and she is having trouble restarting her life. She is 33 years old, broke, and recently single. 10 years ago, she made a hit song, but that was 10 years ago. And now all she can get is crummy karaoke bar gigs. Her longtime manager is sending her to London to relax and try to re-spark her old magic. On the plane, Jane meets an Oxford professor of literature and is instantly smitten in this rigorously funny, down-to-earth rock and roll romance. So our first read-alike is By the Book by Jasmine Guillory. It has a similar lighthearted feel and is described as a down-to-earth, tender romance. Our protagonist is Izzy. She is an overworked, underpaid assistant at a major publishing house. She is sent on a mission to get a long-awaited manuscript from the beastly antagonist celebrity Bo Towers, and shenanigans ensue. Our other read-alike, maybe you've heard of it, maybe not, I don't know, is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. With a similar focus on rock and roll, this coming-of-age story of Daisy Jones and the band known as the Six happens in the late 1960s and is loosely based on the story of the band Fleetwood Mac. This compelling character story has the unique feel of a documentary as it unfolds. Except you might have heard of it. Helps if I put the book the right side out, right? A little bit. Alright. This is The Coronation Year by Jennifer Robson. It is set in London, 1953. This is an enthralling royal-adjacent historical novel, and it follows the lives of three very different residents of London's historic Blue Lion Hotel. Eddie Howard is the proprietor of the Floundering Hotel, and she sees the coronation procession as a godsend because it goes right past her business, so she'll be able to charge more for the rooms and services. Stella Donati is a young Italian photographer and Holocaust survivor who's trying to pick up the pieces of her life. And James Gibbs is a war hero and an artist trying to forget his experiences. Together, their lives converge into an explosive climax on the day of Queen Elizabeth II's coronation. My first read-alike is The Bloomsburg Girls by Natalie Jenner. It is also set in post-war London, and this novel is the story of three women trying to find their place in this new fast-paced post-war world. Try saying that 3 times fast. Vivian is an upper-crust woman who has been single since her aristocratic fiancé was killed in action. Grace is a mother of 2 who became the sole breadwinner after her husband's breakdown. And Evie is one of the first female students permitted to earn a degree from Cambridge. Together, they must work out their differences and figure out how to make the bookshop that they work in thrive. This is a character-driven story that features a strong sense of place. And then we have The Last Garden in England by Julia Kelly, also with a similar story structure of characters tied together by location and circumstance set in England. It focuses on 5 women in 3 eras whose lives are intertwined like the vines in this very special garden. Described as a heartwarming and compelling story, it is short piece.
It was interesting.
Yeah. See? Vote of confidence. Thank you, Carol.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's pretty said guarded.
I think the way she tied the 3 words together.
And then The House is on Fire by Rachel Beanland. This is a fictionalized story of the Richmond Theater fire in 1811. On December 26th, 1811, this beautiful historic theater is packed with nearly 600 individuals excited for the performance to begin when tragedy strikes. This is a compelling and detailed historical fiction that follows the story of 4 of the individuals in the theater that night and how their actions forever changed history during the Inferno. The first read-alike I have is My Name is Yip by Petty Crew. It is also set in the early 1810s in the South. Our protagonist is Yip. He is a social outcast born a mute to a father who has disappeared and raised by his unseemly independent mother. At the age of 15, he finds himself unwittingly thrust into an underworld of violence and sin as he tries to find his way in the world. And then our other read-alike is Florence Adler Swims Forever by Rachel Beanland. It is another historical fiction and her debut, and it takes a look at how shocking tragedy can affect 3 generations of the Adler family who must grapple with the heartbreak, romance, and weight of family secrets that result.
Okay, now we're talking about some books that I understand. So I brought a couple of his books in case you may have forgotten who Charles Frazier is and what he wrote. Cold Mountain is probably his most famous. 13 Moons is my personal favorite. I love all of his books. I've never read one that I didn't like. So I'm very happy to see he's got something new coming along. This is the Trackers, and it takes place in during the Great Depression, and it starts, the story kind of begins in California. Protagonist is an artist named Val Welch. Val has landed a New Deal assignment to create a mural for the Dawes, Wyoming post office. John and Eve Long host him at their sprawling ranch. Eve rode rails and sang in a Western swing band. John was a World War I sniper, and he has political aspirations. And one day, Eve flees with a very valuable painting. Val is recruited to track her. Hooverville, San Francisco, Florida swamps, the search for Eve narrows, and secrets with formidable consequences turn up. For read-alikes, I gotta get these right, because I know my audience. I chose West with Giraffes and The Giver of Stars. Primarily, each has a feature in common with this story. West with Giraffes is also an adventure, and we go across the country. And I don't think it's really classified as a mystery, but we just don't know what's gonna happen to those darn giraffes. Everybody's gonna make it or not. And then The Giver of Stars, of course, Jojo Moyes' book about the librarians on horseback. And that's also a Depression era story. So these are all books 1937, 1938-ish. They're the same era. And interesting things that took place in our country during that time.
How many pages in the tracker? Something like this,
Becky, it's the only one I didn't write down.
You don't look. I heard him reading his other book and thought, oh my God, how many pages were there?
Well, Cold Mountain doesn't do that, I don't think. Do you think?
No, I thought it had, I thought it just was a really slow read of Cold Mountain.
And I read Cold Mountain because my mother loved it so much.
336 pages.
836?
300.
Oh,
300. Sorry, I didn't enunciate, wait, 3.
And,
Capital 3.
Yeah, and 13 Moons, I mean, I read that one pretty quickly. I really loved that one.
Thank you.
Oh, romantic comedy. That's the title of the book. This is by Curtis Sittenfeld, and Curtis Sittenfeld is a female writer. This book has 320 pages. It is a romance, and our protagonist is Sally Mills. Sally is a writer for the Night Owls, a weekly live comedy show. She's pretty satisfied with her single life, but she has a theory, and she named it for a coworker. It's called the Danny Horst Rule, which is average-looking dorky men get involved romantically with very beautiful and accomplished women, and the reverse would never happen. Oh, and enter Noah Brewster. He's the host and musical guest for this week's show, and someone like him would never go for someone like her, right? And that is their romantic adventure. I brought, Rodham, that was I did not read this when it came out, but when it came out, I'm pretty sure it wasn't a romance, and it was pretty edgy, pretty controversial, but it's the same author. And, The Wedding Date by Jasmine Guillory, I did actually read that one.
We're gonna talk contemporary thrillers. So, Jocelyn Jackson, this is her previous one, Mother May I. Check it out while you're waiting for the new one if you are a fan of this style. The newest one's a mother-daughter story, and it starts with a letter. Main character Maribel has come to accept that some odd fan fiction, some odd notes in the mail are part of her career, part of her fame. One letter, written in a fruit-scented marker, just was extra creepy and icky, and she didn't like it, but she crumbles it up and throws it away and tries to move on until another one comes. This one's a little more detailed. This one's talking about the scents in her house. This one's talking about the brands she uses. Details someone could only reference if they had been to her house. Who is watching her? Who is Marker Man? She and her daughter become to refer to him as Marker Man. Is it someone she knows? Is it someone who's stalking her? She and her daughter actually flee to a different state to get a fresh start, buy a new house, and start over and forget all of that. Will it work? We'll have to read it to find out. As I said, Jackson's got other ones on the shelf. She reads a lot like Sally Hepworth's family secrets, drama, unexpected twists. These are great thrillers if you like this genre. The next one is The Rescue. T. Jefferson Parker, who I've not read before and writes a lot of things, but none quite like The Rescue. I don't know if you can tell from the read-alike covers, but The Rescue is in reference to a rescue dog. So in this one, The Rescue, journalist Bettina, we'll go with Bettina. Bettina is working in Tijuana and falls in love with an adorable Mexican street dog. The dog is found injured. Bettina gets him to a vet. And working on her investigative story, Bettina uncovers that there's more to this dog than meets your eye. This dog is a drug-sniffing dog and was shot at by Mexican cartel and criminals. And Bettina will have to struggle to get her new companion out of Tijuana and get her story done. So I did find, these are actually in series too. If you like mysteries with an animal sidekick in them. And what was intriguing to me that I hadn't really thought about before is in this Finders series, the dog, it is a golden retriever, is a cadaver dog. So I thought that was an interesting take to have the dog, find the bodies as part of the story. And Storm Rising is part of a series where the dog works with a special agent to uncover a human trafficking ring. So adventures definitely in all three of these books.
But we'll be and talk about them. The title of this new novel is Only the Beautiful. This is literary fiction coming out on the 18th of April. And it's gonna take place in 1938 and also in 1947 with protagonist Roseanne in the 1938 story and protagonist Helen in the 1947 story. Roseanne is in California and Helen is in Austria. At age 16, Roseanne is orphaned and taken in by the Calverts, who are the owners of the vineyards that have always been her home. Roseanne becomes pregnant and is banished by the Calverts. They send her to what she thinks is a home for unwed mothers, but it ends up to be far worse. Fast forward to 1947, Mr. Calvert's sister Helen returns from Austria to her brother's vineyard and wonders what happened to Roseanne. And she has to discover that even after the war, she must fight terrifying battles at home. Susan Meisner wrote The Nature of Fragile Things, which was the first book by her that I read. It's checked out right now, but it is it's about the 1906 San Francisco earthquake and fire, and it's a story of women who are brought together by unusual circumstances, but they stay together and they help each other and they help the children and they try to make a new life for themselves. And then the other one that was not on the shelf was by Lori King, and that's a mystery called Locked Rooms. And it included the San Francisco earthquake also, but the protagonist in that story, she was present for the earthquake and the fire, but she spent her lifetime denying that she was ever there. And things start to happen in her life that force her to reckon with what she experienced. Even a forgotten past never dies. So that is available here. It just wasn't on the shelf today.
What was that title?
The last one, Locked Rooms, by Lori King.
So, The Only Survivors by Megan Miranda comes out on April 11th. Cassidy and 8 of her former high school classmates managed to survive a terrible accident when they were in school as seniors. A year after the accident, one of the survivors commits suicide, and the remaining group decides to bind together on the anniversary, or to get together on the anniversaries as a group to heal each other and to keep each other safe. However, 10 years later, another of their group mates dies under mysterious circumstances. Cassidy is determined to learn the truth as to what is going on during this 10th anniversary of their accident. Described as a well-crafted, slow burn mystery, it is atmospheric, full of twists and turns. And then the first read-alike I have, which unfortunately has been checked out since when I checked yesterday for it, is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. This is of course a classic, and it shares a similar sense of uncertainty. Here 10 strangers are invited to a lavish estate on an island, as one by one they are murdered in this novel full of twists and turns by the queen of the genre. The other one we have, which is both similar to And Then There Were None, as well as Only Survivors by Megan Miranda, is Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. It has a similar tone and fraught character connections and relationships. Daisy Darker and her family, who have been avoiding each other for years, have all come together to celebrate the family matriarch, nicknamed Nana, and her 80th birthday, when family members start dying. It is an atmospheric and intensifying story full of twists and turns that will leave you reeling.
So the last word is about a woman who writes an online book review and gets an unexpected response. Emma Carpenter lives in a remote location. She's house sitting, or a temporary remote location. She's house sitting, beachfront in Washington. Her companion is her golden retriever. She doesn't have a lot of contacts. The owner occasionally texts her, odd neighbor sightings in passing. So she gives a 1-star review to H.G. Cain's latest poorly written horror novel. And they get into an annoying online argument. You know, you write a review online, you don't expect a response. No, the author wrote back. They go back and forth. And then while she's house sitting, weird things start to happen, and of course late at night. She doesn't know what to make of them. Coincidence? She being stalked? How would Kena find her? What's gonna happen next? For read-alikes, I picked Alex North's The Whisper Man. This is about a serial killer who is known to draw his victims out by whispering in the woods so that they come out of their house to hear what's going on. And then I like 8 Perfect Murders by Peter Swanson. It's a really great mystery in that it pulls on other mystery writers. It is in vein of other 8 mystery murder books. So I like that book theme as a read-alike for this one. I also have the last animal. So this is this author's third book. The last one was a collection of short stories. And this one is described as playful, so not too serious. And that intrigues me that it's playful, and I'll tell you a little bit about more what's going on here. It's about a single mother and her 2 teen daughters. Single mom Jane is a scientist whose team is working to de-extinct the woolly mammoth. Jane gets invited to Siberia to hunt for ancient DNA and clues, and she takes her 2 teenage daughters along with her. The girls are bored, they're homesick, but spoiler alert, they find, when they're exploring their new area, a great 4,000-year-old, perfectly preserved baby woolly mammoth. And this sets off a chain of events that leads to conflict on Jane's research team and conflict within the family, of course. The Last Animals promises to take us on a heartfelt exploration. Lessons in chemistry, yes, the mom's a scientist. It's a heartwarming family story about conflicts at work as well. And then Jodi Picoult, Leaving Time, is about mother-daughter relationship, and the mother in this one is also a researcher, and she researches elephants. So I thought that sounded similar to me.
I think that I read that they have found a baby mammoth.
So if they're able to do that, I have some requests as far as animals go. Alright, so this is Standing in the Shadows by Peter Robson. It is the 28th installment of the Alan Banks series. Alan Banks and his team are called in to investigate an archaeological site that has links to a cold case from 1980. With only a few clues, our protagonist and his team must rely on their wits if he is going to uncover the truth in this twisted murder tale, full of darkness and menace. So the first read-alike I have is actually so you can catch up, although I'm told that you can read these relatively as standalones, that they tend to make more sense if you follow them in a series. So I have the 27th installment called Not Dark Yet. In this one, a property developer is found dead, and Inspector Banks is on the case, and luckily, they discover a bank of security cameras, surveillance cameras, that may have caught the murderer in act, but those cameras reveal more than Banks anticipates in this fast-paced story plot-driven mystery. Sorry, so excited, all the words come out at once. The other read-alike I have is also by Peter Robinson, although it is not part of a series, it is a standalone. I grabbed it because it has a similar dual story structure and dual investigation between the archaeological site and the 1980s cold case. In this one, Chris, a famous Hollywood composer, always promised his wife they would return to Yorkshire one day. But after her death, it becomes his mission. He rents a remote home so he can sit and have space to grieve, as well as compose a piano sonata that he has always wanted to do. However, he learns that his rental was the scene of a grisly murder in the 1950s, described as a well-crafted mystery with interesting characters and plenty of twists and turns to keep you guessing. And then we move from our fiction to nonfiction. Trying to get all my notes. Trying to make sure I'm putting notes that you can actually see. Okay. So, Follow Me to Hell by John Clavlin. We're gonna go with it. Is a new narrative nonfiction that tells the story of Lender McNelly and other individuals who settled in Texas in the latter 1800s. It is described as a well-balanced, meticulously researched historical account that does not shy away from the realities of the time period or the mission of the individuals who later call themselves the Texas Rangers. So it's about how that group developed over time. The the first read-alike I have is Texas Blood by Roger Hodge. You want to call him Hodger, which is not right. This is an accessibly written story where the author who's actually started doing family research and trying to understand his roots in the state of Texas. And in exploring his heritage, he paints a vivid picture of the history of the state, its beauty and its character and contradiction, from a place of freedom to brutal colonialism. It's well drawn and just a nice kind of easy read, even though it handles some very heavy topics. The other book I have is Born of Lakes and Plains by Anne Farrar Hyde. So this book actually, she is a Pulitzer Prize finalist for this book. It is meticulously researched and explores the experience of individuals of mixed heritage in the American West and how they helped to shape it. It is described as richly detailed with beautiful prose, and it is a compelling read into a window of the past not often explored.
The newest from Zuckoff, who has written quite a few titles, many of which are available here, including Frozen in Time, is going to be a wonderful, exciting new account about an American officer engineer and a brave Afghani mother who pulled off a frenzied and breathtaking rescue during this recent, of course, evacuation of Afghanistan. As the U.S. announces its withdrawal from Afghanistan, Homari Qadari will be the assumed target of the Taliban. Homari is a celebrated author, an academic, and a champion for women's liberation there. She and her son and her parents rush to the Kabul airport and are surrounded by the turmoil. Young American diplomat Sam Arneson is actually on time off when the chaos starts. He joins the skeleton team of remaining officials to help get people out. Arneson is contacted by Homari's literary agent, who persuades him to help her escape. The Secret Gate is a thrilling, emotional tale and a skin of their teeth escape. This one, written by the same author, is about a plane that went down during World War II, I believe in enemy territory, and everyone from the first plane wreck, all 9 of them survived. And they were waiting on their rescue plane, and the rescue plane went down. So this is quite the page turner about real events, of course, we're talking about nonfiction. I also am really moved by The Dressmaker of, forgive me for butchering this, Kaharna. This is a really interesting story about when the Taliban originally took over control in Kabul, and this woman's family was completely remade by it because the woman this book is written about was, I believe she was a teacher, she was a university teacher. The Taliban took over, her brother and father were forced to flee, she was forced out of her job, and then she became the sole breadwinner for her family, which were 5 siblings at the time. So this sounds like a really great emotional read, and it's just a short little thing. I can't wait to pick it up myself. And the next one too, On the Origin of Time. Miranda, I don't know why you didn't just pick this one.
That's because I picked the Under Alien Skies. Figure I shouldn't have all of the fun.
We'll go with that. So Thomas Hertog worked with Stephen Hawking for decades, honestly. They were their closest collaborators of Hawking, and Thomas was close at the time of his death. So this newest one is going to talk about their final conversations, their final theories, Hawking's final thoughts on the cosmos, and a revision to his theories in a brief history of time. I brought with me the illustrated version, might be a little more consumer friendly with some pictures. Hawking had long pondered the mystery of the Big Bang. Hertog and Hawking worked together, and toward the end, they had a revolutionary idea that the laws of physics are not set in stone, but are born and co-evolve as the universe takes shape. So this is a striking, fresh version of the universe birth that will alter how we think and about our place and order of the cosmos, and will add to Hawking's great legacy. And for those of us maybe not so into the heavy This one's a really great, quick, look at that pocketbook size. Read Astrophysics for People in a Hurry, bestseller from not too long ago.
Say it is one of my favorites, Neil deGrasse Tyson. I've listened to that one many times. He also reads the audiobook if you are so inclined.
And today is the anniversary of Stephen Hawking's death.
I did not know
Pie
that.
Day
It's-
and National Potato Chip Day.
It's Pie Day, Potato Chip Day, Gary Branson's birthday, my mother's birthday, Albert Einstein's birthday. What a momentous day.
Wow.
I started it by smelling coffee, I'm sure.
We're all here to talk about books. I have Pathogenesis by Jonathan Kennedy. This is his offering. First of all, let me give you some credentials. He is a director of global public health at London Medical School. And he has a PhD in sociology, which I think is an interesting blend. But his book is so provocative because he offers insights to the human story from our assumed we win because we're smarter and bigger, brains and brawn. We bend the arc of history that way, and he's bringing in the fact that humble microbes are winners of wars and topplers of empires. He looks at 60,000 years of history, and he uses genetics, anthrobiology, archaeology, economics, among the other sciences and disciplines. His studies placed disease at the center of a human's movement forward, including the rise of Christianity. He believes that Christianity was supported by deadly pandemics that required healing of the sick, which was a major tenet, still is, of Christian faith. So he's taken some very interesting turns with some probably thought-provoking ideas. His idea isn't entirely unique. The plague cycle from 2021 is a similar concept. It isn't quite, it's not approached in quite the multidisciplinary way that the pathogenesis is. And then also, I don't know if you guys remember this one coming out, mosquito. This makes a pretty interesting case that we were not driven forward by microbes, we were not driven forward by brains and brawn, but it was the mosquito. So I guess if you look close enough at things, you can make a lot of connections. This was very popular a few years ago. It came out in 2019.
Alright, so this is Under Alien Skies by Philip Platt. This is described as a lively, immersive adventure through the cosmos. It is drawn from the latest research to transport you to 10 spectacular stellar sites through our solar system and beyond. It's described as a rip-roaring tour across, and it allows you to visit faraway places from your favorite reading spot. So these skies are specifically from different perspectives, say like the moon and different planets in our solar system, and Pluto, which is technically not a planet. Come at me, third graders. The read-alikes I have for this book are Astronomy, a Visual Guide. I really like this guide for people who are getting into it, or even people who have who are well versed in astronomy. It provides a lot of really good insight and explains how we explore the universe. And then this is the astronomy book. This one does a really, really good job, as the title suggests. Big ideas simply explained of taking those really big astronomy theories and things and making them understandable to all of us who are not astrophysicists. Because, you know, definitely not. I can't do math. That's why I'm a librarian. And then, yeah, so it took me a minute to remember that Queen Elizabeth II's mother was also named Elizabeth, so it's Queen Elizabeth, not the second. Even though yeah, it's confusing. As far as things like death goes. So, this is George VI and Elizabeth by Sally Bedell Smith. It is a revolutionary account that explores how the loving marriage between King George VI and his wife, Queen Elizabeth, impacted their daughters, Princess Margaret and future Queen Elizabeth II, and it specifically looks at that time period during World War II. It is described as an intimate portrait of the partnership between the two and intricately describes their life together. So the first read-alike I have is The Young Elizabeth, The Making of a Queen, to actually explore how this relationship impacted her, to see what her life was like as a young child growing into the monarch that we knew and loved. And so this is one end of the spectrum, a loving royal relationship. My other read-alike is the other end of the spectrum. It is a biography of Anne Boleyn, who famously did not do so well with King Henry VIII. I don't remember which order she was in the number of wives. I think she was the second. Two, yep. Yeah. So it didn't go so well. So this is her story and her life leading up to that point, and then we all know what happened.
She's a mother of Elizabeth I.
Yes, she is. Too many Elizabeths, guys. I can't keep track of them all. And that is it for us. Thank you so much for joining us today. Our next one will be April 11th, in which we will be talking about books coming out in May. My goodness, time flies, doesn't it?
Thank you.
Thank you. Don't forget to grab cookies.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.